Dad's business failed, and the family owed a lot of debt. I'm a late bloomer. I'm afraid I won't be able to pay it off in the next life. I used to be ironclad, but now I'm bent over money. So, I sold myself, or sell to Yale Barrett, the person I hate the most. 500,000 flowers were flown in from Netherlands to Bali. 6 special planes were called, and a diamond ring the size of a pigeon's egg blinded my 2 4K titanium dog's eye. It was a wedding I never dreamed of, and it came true when I was 26 years old. At the wedding, I walked to the stage in an ivory silk wedding dress in front of everyone, and married the perfect man in front of me who could hardly find any faults. Oh, if I don't know who he really is. His name was Yale Barrett, my boss, the owner of an internet company, handsome and rich. It stands to reason that with my current predicament, such a marriage is hard to find. But 2 weeks ago, Sarah Norris, did it. During my lunch break at work that day, I received a call from my mother, and the main content remained the same, which was to urge me to go on a blind date. I casually coped with the past. Mom, I don't want to get married. I'm fine on my own now. Okay, what a fart. Ella from Michael's house next door is as old as you and already has children. What about you? When you grow up to 26 years old and don't even have a boyfriend, you're going to kill your mom in a hurry. My mom's voice was deafening. I'm celibate, single for 26 years. I've never been in a relationship. In short, I don't have much interest in love, let alone marriage. I only love money. So when Yale Barrett overheard me, and my mom by chance, he asked me in a condescending, smiling tone, Sarah Norris, do you want to marry me? When I almost said yes. The reason I didn't say yes right away was that I felt he had other plans. After all, I've been working under him for 4 years, and I've been his direct subordinate since Onto was a small company, but we're notoriously at odds with each other. Why? The reason is that we are college classmates, and I always compete for the first and second place in the exam, and finally get to graduate from college. When I repeatedly hit a wall when looking for a job due to personality reasons, he has already started his own business, while taking the postgraduate examination during college, and opened a small internet company. I remember a sleepy eye coming to Yale Barrett's phone call one morning. Sarah Norris, I heard you're still looking for a job, and as an old classmate, why don't I be merciful and take you in? In this way, I resigned myself to fate and committed myself to him for 4 years. Every day I was thinking about how I could escape from his control, and one day I could break new ground with my own abilities. After all, only by penetrating into the enemy, knowing myself and knowing my opponent, can I win all battles. I didn't expect him to propose to me one day. So what is my dormant for so many years? I asked him. Why? You have a lot of other options. Only you can. This sentence was so affectionate that it seemed like he was about to confess. But the next second he immediately broke my illusion. I, like you, don't have much expectations for marriage. Just looking for someone to live with, and my family is urging me to live. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and politely refused. Boss, you are the boss of a large company. What kind of marriage partner do you want? I don't deserve it. Besides, your family won't agree to it. My parents don't care about me. I'm free to make my own decisions. I didn't actually tell you. I was hurt by my first love before, and from then on I don't believe in love anymore. I'm not close to women, so you don't have to worry about anything. You can rest assured. Yale Barrett looked serious, not at all joking. In fact, it was the first time I heard him talk about relationship problems, and for a while I didn't know which goddess was doing it for Tianxing. To be able to infuriate Yale Barrett with such a big sequel, I want to kneel and beg for a tutorial. No wonder he's been single all these years. I think that, when he was in school, he was a man of the hour, and he didn't bring the same breakfast on the table every day, which made me envious half to death. As soon as I peeked at the Xiaolongbao on his table, he smiled and said, Sarah Norris, you call your grandfather brother. The breakfast here is yours. I'm the kind of person who bends over 5 buckets of rice. I turned back with a bang. Don't think about Yale Barrett unless I die. And now, I really have to bend my waist for 5 buckets of rice. My dad didn't pay off the money he owed to his relatives a few years ago, And my mom recently thought about mortgaging the house my grandmother left behind. I'm a late bloomer. I'm afraid I can't pay it off all of a sudden. So, I'm probably going to sell myself. Or sell to Yale Barrett, the person I hate the most. Yale Barrett, if I don't marry you, will you lend me the money? Sarah Norris. He suddenly leaned in. I'm a businessman, and in my worldview, everything is a matter of money and goods. Don't you understand? Sure enough, it's Yale Barrett, a big drop of nasty. How's it going? Sarah Norris. Yale Barrett is really stingy, and I remember the incident when I robbed him of his class president in college. I stroked the long hair of my shawl, and threw a wink at him. Aren't you afraid that I will heal your love wounds for many years? Yale Barrett scoffed. Unless there are no other women in this world. My raised hand was gently grabbed by Yale Barrett, who went on to explain. I understand the reason why rabbits don't eat the grass around their nests. Besides, you've been needing money lately. He did investigate me, and I was manipulated to death, and finally bowed to the power of money. I'm going to get married before I fall in love for a while, and the marriage partner is still my top boss and super invincible rival. The point is, there is no love between the two of us at all. I may be not going to have children. I looked up, looked at Yale Barrett, and said seriously, once the child is born, in the eyes of the child, there is no love between the parents at all, and he has become a bond to the whole family, which is too unfair to him. Yale Barrett raised an eyebrow at me, his expression too ill-intentioned. I just mentioned getting married, and you've already thought about having children. Why, you can't wait. I rolled my eyes and said speechlessly, I'll consider your proposal, and I'm serious about it. Yale Barrett retracted his expression. I originally thought that Yale Barrett would refuse. After all, this is related to their family inheritance. And he did struggle for a while before he said ambiguously, I will not let my child be born without love. It probably means that they won't force me to have children. So, we reached an agreement that we would only tell our family about the marriage to avoid unnecessary trouble. And as for the transaction between us, we were naturally tight-lipped. The old mother, who was kept in the dark, was bluffed and stunned under the offensive of Yale Barrett's Miyoshi son-in-law and dazzling bride price sugar-coated shells. Yale Barrett, what do you like about my girl? My mom is a little more gossip than Yale Barrett's family, which I didn't expect. Misguided. Yale Barrett replied in a serious way, Sarah Norris is fine everywhere. It's disgusting. I'm getting goosebumps. My mom chased after her. How did you two get together? Oh my God. You can leave me alone. Just when I thought that Yale Barrett would be recognized by my mother because he couldn't answer. He didn't blush and his heart didn't beat. Sarah Norris and I were college classmates, and I became interested in her when I was in college. Auntie, didn't Sarah Norris mention me to you? Who's going to mention you? Unexpectedly, my mother clapped her hands and replied, You're Yale Barrett. Sarah Norris has been mentioning you in front of me before. Oh. Yale Barrett became interested. What did she say about me? What did I say about him? I think it's a little bit bad. She keeps saying that you have good grades, always a point or two higher than her. Oh, and she made a rag doll with your picture on it, and she said that she wouldn't let me throw it away. I threw it away, and she was still anxious with me, so there were signs at that time. Ragdolls. It's over. It's over. That's the voodoo doll I bought, specifically for cursing Yale Barrett. I didn't expect that under my curse. Yale Barrett's company is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting better and better. What kind of metaphysics is this? And sure enough, the ghosts and gods are not credible, but it has a counter effect on me, which is probably retribution. Oh, he pinched my shoulder, but with a smile on his face. It turns out that you liked me so much at that time. On the way back, I was exposed to my old bottom. Very weak. Yale Barrett 192 was walking side by side with me. I was 165, not too short, but next to him looked extremely oppressive. If you have something to say, don't be so pretentious. Not like you. I strike first. He didn't speak, but approached step by step, forcing me into a corner. I smelled some kind of familiar scent. I couldn't speak for a while. Under the street lamp, his voice was hoarse and cold, especially sultry. Sarah Norris, do you hate me so much? I took a half step back, pulling away. We haven't always been like this. and you don't like me much. Just as the atmosphere between the two of us was eerie, Yale Barrett's phone rang suddenly. Hey, Yale Barrett, why haven't you come back yet? The voice is loud. It's the vice president. He glanced at me, and I walked away to give him free remarks. And in a few moments he finished walking over, and as if he was about to say something, I interrupted him. Go ahead. I have the consciousness of a formal marriage. We are not really married anyway. You don't have to report anything to me. We are free. I shrugged my shoulders generously and waved goodbye to him. I don't know if it's my delusion. Yale Barrett's expression became very ugly for a moment. Yale Barrett's moodiness used to seem to me to be a sign of early menopause. But now that I learned that he had been hurt by his feelings, I seemed to touch his pulse at once. I cautiously asked, why? Did your first love tell you these things? Yale Barrett glanced at me, gritted his teeth, and said, yes. My first love was a scumbag who played with my feelings, and it would be better for you to talk less about scumbag. I made a zip gesture and shut up, for fear that one would accidentally step on his minefield again. And so, 2 weeks later, I became Yale Barrett's wife. Finally it was night, the bright red rose petals on the bed, the room lit with a good smell, and in the haze, even the consciousness was a little confused. My best friend Ingrid Sandy also gave me a night of sexual knowledge for a single mother, but she didn't know it, and I didn't need it at all. With that in mind, Yale Barrett came in. Today he wore a white suit, which was the perfect proportion of the 9-headed body. The excellent cut of the suit outlined his sturdy figure, and his hair was pulled behind his ears. But there was a kind of charming like wildness. Such a man, even a woman, can't hold it. He seemed to be a little drunk, and his voice was a little hoarse. Sarah Norris Tilda. He called me by name. Are you feeling bad? Do you want to drink water? I went to the side and poured him a glass of water. He didn't answer, and sat down on the bed. Yale Barrett is a man with no faults, except for one thing. His wine is very bad, and the day he graduated from college, he was a drunkard for a long time, and he scared everyone enough. I couldn't stand it, so I just handed the glass to his lips. He didn't answer, and looked up at me, his eyes, strange, like the eyes of a beast. Wet. Why didn't you change your wedding dress? Won't it be uncomfortable? He tugged at the ribbon on my dress, and his tone was quite coquettish. This wedding dress is custom made. The silk sleeve next to it is so long, I can easily tear it off by myself. I'll wait for Ingrid Sandy to come in and help me take it off. On the wedding night, you asked your best friend to help you take off your wedding dress. Did you want to tell the world that your husband can't do it? But you just can't. Yale Barrett. I don't have the guts to say that. Yale Barrett. You don't have to stay here tonight. You can go wherever you want. I won't care. He pursed his lips as if he hadn't been pleased with my permission, and he ripped the tie around his neck, his slender fingers unbuttoning the first button of his shirt, revealing his well-defined collarbone. Sarah Norris. I'm happy. What are you happy about? The brain is broken. I grabbed him by the collar and told him to stop his irritation. Yale Barrett. I'm going to be angry if you keep doing this. He took the opportunity to wrap his arms around my waist, and his breath approached. The fine warm light flowed in his eyes, and the slightly open collar made people want to take a bite. You're always like this. When you face me, you put on a face, and you just smiled sweetly at others. As he spoke, he fell asleep. Is this man stupid? The next morning, I almost came to the office with a backache, not because of what happened between me and Yale Barrett, of course, but because he was back in the middle of the night, singing and dancing, and making a lot of noise. Also said that he wanted to hug, like a child, and the image of a cold male god was nothing. When the night finally stopped, I gave up the bed to him, and took the futon and slept on the floor. What a pathetic wedding night. When I woke up in the morning, I actually slept in bed. Yale Barrett was no longer there. I should have gone to the company. Workaholic all year round. I cleaned up briefly, and as soon as I entered the company, I went straight to the president's office, which was empty. I was puzzled, and when I saw the assistant Lucas let the cleaning ant come in to clean up, I hurriedly chased after me and asked, Yale Barrett took a leave of absence today. Lucas nudged his glasses. Leave? That workaholic, Yale Barrett, would have taken a leave of absence? Seeing that I was stunned and did not speak, Lucas added, Yale Barrett is newly married. I also sent candy and souvenirs to every employee of the company. Oh, by the way, you have it too. Put it at your desk. It seems that everyone still doesn't know that the person who married Yale Barrett is me. A moment later, I received a call from Yale Barrett. What about you? His voice was always languid. I replied, in the company. He scoffed. Sister, have you ever seen someone go to work on their first wedding day? This sister, just to take my soul away. I coughed lightly, reluctantly relieving. And where are you now? At your doorstep. I had to drive home. Yale Barrett was already standing at the door waiting for me, wearing a khaki long trench coat and a black baseball cap. Not like the old-fashioned suit he wore when he went to work, but he looked like the male protagonist of a Korean drama in a TV series. Is quite good at dressing? He is like this. He provoked a lot of little girls when he was studying. Actually, you don't have to. I walked over and took the gift he had bought for my mom. Yale Barrett paused for a moment, then said, you have to do a full show, and you don't want to be seen and disappoint your mother. As he spoke, he motioned for me to take his arm. I grudgingly accepted. When I entered the house, my mother skipped me directly and pulled Yale Barrett in, and she was extremely satisfied with this son-in-law, who knew the rules, and almost didn't have me as a daughter in her eyes. It's happy, and it's like no one else. At the end of the day, my mom pulled me over and asked me how I was last night, and if I had that. What do you say that if you don't have children so early, you should take good measures? Otherwise it will hurt your body at that time. And if you want to, you should have it as soon as possible, and have more children while you are young. I still have the bullwhip from Michael next door, and you mend Yale Barrett's body. And that's how her daughter's baby was conceived. How did I answer? I looked back at Yale Barrett with a pleading look on my face. He came running over to help me out. Mom, don't worry, I don't need this. I don't believe you ask Sarah Norris. She knows. I know. On the way back, I sat in Yale Barrett's car, and between the corners of my eyebrows, I saw him snickering. I wasn't too embarrassed to pass by what had just happened, and I teased, don't mind what my mom said. Instead, he said, I don't mind, but your ears are red. I was able to, it's just a few words and a few words. I don't care, I'm the boss wife now. It's not surprising that such a little wind and rain. He smiled again and asked me again, then you say, do I want to announce our relationship with the whole company, so that no one will dare to disobey what Sarah Norris says? That's not necessary. If everyone obeys me because I'm the boss wife, the good advice will be buried, and then my sin will be great. Oh, Sarah Norris, quite a visionary. He nodded appreciatively. Suddenly, the conversation changed. I didn't do anything last night, did I? Speaking of which, I have a say. Yale Barrett, you don't know how much you drink, do you? You can't drink that much. He suddenly slowed down and looked at me, like an aggrieved little daughter-in-law. You won't take advantage of me to be drunk, and do something to me, will you? You're just doing something to me. I didn't accept it, thinking that yesterday he put his arms around my waist, and carried me to bed, and he was the one who took advantage of it. Where did I move you? His gaze was ill-intentioned. I looked at him with disdain. You must have hugged me, carried me to the bed. He scratched his nose. It seems that there is such a thing. I still touched. Don't say it. My face is a little red. It's not far, but it's not going in the right direction. That doesn't seem like the way back to my house. This row of villas is obviously not a building that a working-class person like me could have bought. Married, of course live with me. He took it for granted. Should I remind him that we are just a formal marriage? Forget it. Such a good house. It won't be in vain. Yale Barrett's villa. No one around. According to him, is a new house. No servants are hired, and the aunt comes to clean it once a day during work, and the rest of the time it is just us. Blame the diaphragm. He took me to my room, and the moment I opened the door, I was shocked. I moved everything from my original rental house, from the small pendant wind chimes to the wardrobe jewelry table. All of them were shipped here, including the voodoo doll. I picked up the doll and said, how are you? Brought this with you? He glanced at me and mocked. Isn't it very important? I'm afraid I'll lose it, and someone will be in a hurry with me. I pursed my lips, but he walked out of the room, and before leaving, He didn't forget to leave a sentence. Maybe you don't know. Pink voodoo dolls are used for love and sex. And if you really hate me, you have to use black to work. You have to take care of it. I just love pink. In the middle of the night, perhaps because I was in bed, I didn't fall asleep, but I accidentally remembered that there was a college graduation album in the drawer, and I picked it up and flipped through it on a whim. The first thing I saw was Yale Barrett. He was wearing a white uniform, standing behind me, and the first time I saw him, I thought it was a fairy brother from somewhere, and I was almost blinded by his appearance. He seemed to be behind me all the time, where I could see as soon as I turned my head. In fact, he is really polite to others, only in the face of me, he always looks like an unlucky child with a poisonous tongue. Sarah Norris, if you continue like this, I'm going to overtake you. Sarah Norris, don't let me fall in love while I'm studying. Sarah Norris, your dad is your dad, you're you, he's changed. Why should you be willing to fall? Sarah Norris, come with me to the same company after graduation. I was in a daze as I was reminiscing about the past, when suddenly my phone rang and Zoe Child's voice rang on the phone. Zoe Child is the publicity committee of our university, and after graduation, he worked in Jiangcheng, and our relationship was not particularly familiar, so he hardly had much contact after graduation, and he didn't know where to get my phone number, and invited me to tomorrow's college reunion. She was excited. Yes, we haven't been together for so many years after graduating from college. I heard you work at Yale Barrett's company. Why don't you tell him about it for me? I don't know if I'll talk to Yale Barrett about it, if he'll go. I edited a text message to him. There is no reply. So late. Did you sleep? I got up from the covers, crept to the door of his room, and knocked on his door. What's the matter? Sure enough, I didn't sleep. Are you going to the class reunion tomorrow afternoon? I'm actually not hopeful. Anyway, I'm only responsible for conveying it, and it's up to him whether he goes or not. What time is it? Heh, quite a surprising reply. What time is the afternoon? He asked again good-naturedly. 2:30. I'll pick you up then. The classmates will book in a hotel. For the classmates who have not seen each other for a long time, it is a lie to say that there is no nervousness at the moment of pushing the door. Zoe Child met us at the door and pushed us in. Evrion's eyes suddenly focused on the two of us, and I found out. My embarrassment is getting worse. Oh, this isn't the squad leader and Yale Barrett. When everyone saw us, they hurriedly got up, and a few classmates who couldn't even call me by name took the initiative to help me pull the chair away. You two came together. I smiled sheepishly. I just happened to touch the door. Just then, Dylan Doris walked in. He used to chase me in college, but I rejected him on the grounds that he was studying too much, and I haven't seen him again after graduation, and I heard that he is not bad now. Oops, big boss, hurry up. The person next to me pulled out the seat to my right, and beckoned Dylan Doris to sit down. Here. Dylan Doris and Sarah Norris are sitting, old acquaintances. The crowd began to coax. At that time, we kept saying that you two were a match made in heaven for our class, but now this is not right. The dinner is a wedding banquet. Just come, and hand over a glass of wine. At that time, Dylan Doris was known to be chasing me, so the class naturally pulled the two of us together. The air froze for a moment, and Yale Barrett, who was silent on the side, slapped the table very hard, and his face was very ugly. Satan didn't speak. Everyone still had their lives, and as soon as he opened his mouth, people died on the spot. Sarah Norris heard that we are married, and the groom doesn't seem to be this Dylan Doris. He gave me a look that seemed to say, if you don't make it clear, I'll tell the world that we're husband and wife. Yes, I'm married. I nodded. I didn't dare to mess with him at this moment. Actually, Dylan Doris and I are just old classmates. Don't always pull us together. I gave Dylan Doris an apologetic smile at the next one, and he gave me a reassuring look, and I felt a thorn in my back, and a pair of eyes staring at me. Alas, what a pity. Mason lamented not to die. We thought you would be together. But what about Yale Barrett? Is it in love? Step on the thunder accurately. Married, Yale Barrett said calmly. The dinner table exploded. No, you can get married. I really want to see who is so attractive. You can get our school grass in your hands. What does my sister-in-law look like? Bring it to us someday. It's beautiful, but her personality isn't very good, and she always works against me. OH_YALE Barrett. Hello, sassy girlfriend. Doesn't Sarah Norris just match? When you were at school, you two had a lot of trouble. I snorted them. Yale Barrett, who had always been steady after graduating from college that year, was drunk like crazy, and I thought he was in a bad mood when he knew that Dylan Doris and Sarah Norris were together. CP can be unpopular, but it can't be evil. Is that so? I saw Yale Barrett and was visibly choking. I got up and went to the bathroom. The girls' toilet is always a place with many secrets. Those men are too good at blowing. Sarah Norris' skin has gotten so bad. I used to think that she must be the first person in our class to drive a luxury car and live in a villa. I'm not working for someone yet. I heard that Sarah Norris went bankrupt at that time, and suddenly became an ordinary person from a little princess. And she was in debt, and I heard that her father was still drinking. So life can be better. She could be a rich old man. Hey, people are proud princesses. Are they willing to do such a cheap thing? Logically speaking, I should be angry, but at this time, my heart is calm, and they are right. As if I did do something quite cheap, I sold myself. To Yale Barrett, I calmly pushed open the door, walked over to the girls who chewed the root of their tongues, calmly washed my hands, and took out the lipstick in my bag to touch up my makeup. When they saw me, they felt embarrassed that the secret had been broken, but the wicked person bit back first. Sarah Norris, your behavior is disgusting, eavesdropping on other people's conversations. I was a little amused. Miss, you were yourself chewing the root of your tongue in the toilet and were heard by the person. Blame me. She was about to fight back, but I wouldn't give her a chance. Audrey kiddo, the pattern on your Ontago medium bag is already a little yellowed. I reminded her that this bag was a cargo, and she was speechless. Really, it was so funny. Back in my original position, at the end of the meal, I suddenly lost my appetite and wanted to leave early. I'll go first. And there's something I need to deal with at work. I picked up the bag. No, so early. Well, work. I'll send you. At this time, Dylan Doris actually stood up, causing everyone to laugh. Sure enough, in the next second, Yale Barrett snorted impatiently. Sarah Norris is my subordinate. She wants to go back to the company. I'll just send her back. Slight swelling pain begins in the lower abdomen. No, I don't. I pushed him away. I'll go back myself. I ran out like this, in full view of everyone. No one knew what was happening, not even myself. Ran a few steps, and finally I couldn't run, and walked slowly, until the sound of leather shoes stomping on the ground was heard from behind. I hurriedly wiped my tears with my dirty hands, and looked back with a smile that was uglier than crying. I'm sorry to make you laugh. Sarah Norris, what are you crying about? He looked at me, condescending. I don't know. My eyes are in the sand. I quibble. Yale Barrett walked up to me, and bent down slightly. I've never seen you cry. Who made you cry? At his words, my tears flowed down like a broken embankment. Am I cheap? Yale Barrett frowned, looking at me, a little helpless. Who said that? Nobody said. It's my own opinion. I burst into tears. I sold myself for money. Now I can marry you for money, and in the future I will sleep with you for money. Don't you marry such a woman? I turned around and left. Yale Barrett was behind me, 1.9 meters tall, enough to envelop me in the crook of his arm, and couldn't move. He held my wrist and turned my body around until he finally hugged me tightly. His voice soft. I didn't want to force you. I just think you may need it, and I feel bad when I see you uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do to accept my kindness. Maybe I owe you all my life. I didn't know how to get home that night. I didn't drink, but my eyes were swollen like rabbits, and I woke up the next morning with a hangover and a splitting headache. Yale Barrett was already sitting there, eating his breakfast leisurely, and when I thought of what he had said last night, my face turned red at once, and the little family refused to come out in anger. I regret what he did last night, and I don't understand what he said yesterday. It's a real headache. Isn't he not close to women? How can you still be so good at sultry kung fu? What are you doing behind you? Come out for breakfast, he shouted. Oh, like a child who had done something wrong. I moved to the table and sat down. During the meal, he didn't mention yesterday's incident. but just poured milk for me. As soon as I came to the company, I saw my intern Joe Truman sitting at his desk and depressed. This little girl is not easy to mess with. She is the daughter of the director of the company. She is squeamish and willful, and she loses her temper, especially the Yale Barrett. And I heard that most of the reason she came here was to run for him. Now that I know that he is married, I am not depressed. Fortunately, the last wedding was held in secret, otherwise she would have known that I was the object of her crush, and would have eaten me alive. Sister Sarah Norris, which vixen did you say seduced Yale Barrett? Fascinated him. The point is that my dad didn't even know he was married. You didn't say it too much. I liked him for so many years. I didn't bother to pay attention to her. Have you typed out all the plans you were asked to do before? She looked confused. What plan? I guess probably. Have you done everything for tomorrow's press conference? She perfunctorily said. Probably. The person in charge over there said that it was almost done. Didn't you watch the scene yourself? How can I be free? I haven't done my manicure yet. She cocked her orchid fingers, looked at her delicate nails, and instead put the cup of Starbucks on my desk, and smiled at me flatteringly. Sister Sarah Norris, I invited you for this cup. Why don't you help me make a plan? With your speed, it will be done in the morning. I didn't show her mercy and pushed the coffee back. Joe Truman, am I your mother? Doing you a second favor. Joe Truman didn't expect me to be so capable, so he was so angry that his face turned red. Sarah Norris, call you sister well, don't kick your nose in the face. Do you know who I am? I know, the director's precious daughter. I grew bold, and I didn't even give a damn. I really had enough. If it wasn't for the company I'd fight her. So what? Do you pay me? It's very open to pretend to be a relationship with me here, don't you? I'm out of the way. Since she's joined the company and now I've been assigned to me, my workload has doubled, and I have to wipe her ass if she can't do it, and I can't bear it today. What about knives? I want to cut someone. Things are getting bigger and bigger, and seeing that they are out of control, the huge movement alarms the big boss, and in the blink of an eye, he is invited to the office for tea. Joe Truman and I had our hair grabbed by the evil mother-in-law, and we can't help it. Women love to scratch our hair when we fight, and pity me for the big waves I have recently made. When Joe Truman saw Yale Barrett, he almost pounced. Brother Yale Barrett. Sarah Norris grabbed me. Look at my hair. Because of her position, Joe Truman usually can't reach Yale Barrett, and as for why her father didn't give her a slightly higher position, the main reason is that she is too unmotivated. I can't bring such a person to me. I glanced at Yale Barrett. Actually, I didn't expect Yale Barrett to be on my side. After all, if it was him, it would be good not to fall into the ground. Sarah Norris. Heh. I listened, waiting for the next reprimand. You say you're a boss wife. Why are you angry with the new intern? Well, yes. Why should I be angry with her? What, Mrs. Boss? Not only me, but Joe Truman's face was also a blue and white pork liver color. Brother Yale Barrett, are you blind to her? She's a dominatrix. Joe Truman doesn't understand. That's just right. Yale Barrett walked over and put his arm around my shoulders. His jawline was smooth. The Adam's apple on his neck was obvious, and I could even hear my own heartbeat. People also call me the Great Demon King. The Demon King and the Yaksha. It just happens to be one family. It's so earthy. Tilda Yale Barrett can also speak earthy love words. I almost burst out laughing. Seeing Joe Truman's not so good-looking face, I wanted to smile even more. On the way home in the evening, I started to say, Yale Barrett, are we really okay with Joe Truman doing this? He drove the car, looking indifferent. Archibald Truman, this old fox is used to being arrogant in the company, and it is good to suppress his arrogance. If it weren't for my father's friendship with him, he would have been out of Ontuo a long time ago. Seeing my doubts, Yale Barrett explained, Archibald Truman is an old friend of my father. When I just founded Ontuo, I met him and happened to be laid off. My father asked me to arrange a nominal position for him in the company. Who knew that the company became bigger and bigger? He made a lot of money with this nominal director, and he really regarded himself as a talent. When Yale Barrett said this, his eyes were full of disdain and even indifference. Dare to love the person I provoked in Yale Barrett in the first place. Wouldn't that be a mess for him? I lowered my head, feeling guilty. What are you doing? My sudden silence made him a little strange. Am I messing with you? I couldn't control it. I thought, hey, why don't you say it? He took my words. I'll tell you that you didn't think I would be on your side. He struck me in the heart. Sarah Norris, no matter what, you are my wife. Whether you are justified or not, I will be on your side. The words are beautiful, but I don't believe it. This time I am reasonable. If I don't reason, will you still let me lose your temper? I'll just help my relatives or not. I don't believe you try. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere in the car gradually heated up, and an electric current rushed up from the bottom of my body, and my face was pure red into a sieve. I was a little panicked. The quotations of the boss were too seductive, and I hurriedly made a fan-like cover with my left hand. Joe Truman isn't going to make our relationship public. I'm a little worried. He scoffed. Hey, you think she's stupid? What's in it for her? It's tomorrow's press conference. Do you have confidence in me? Yes. I felt like I had been beaten. I have 100% faith in you. He had a childlike look on his face. But didn't you leave it all to Joe Truman? Is it okay if she doesn't finish it? She's an old man. Can I not understand? I've done such an important job, a long time ago. So you can wait, and see it tomorrow. And the press conference will definitely surprise you. He smiled, baring his white teeth. Okay, I'll wait and see. The next day, I arrived early at the scene, and the company was developing a love development game that needed to be presented to the market for the first time. As soon as this press conference is over, the investment project of Monkey should be able to stabilize. Sarah Norris. No, our mascot actor was injured today, and didn't make it. What are you afraid of? Oh my God. Sure enough, something is going to go wrong. The mascot is the protagonist of the software, and is an important part of the conference. Faced with such an unexpected situation, I quickly analyzed the current situation. The mascot needs to appear on stage, and the actors need to know the process, the position of the platform, and it must be a girl who is more than 1 meter tall. Come to think of it, I'm the most suitable person. The doll's headgear weighs 9 pounds, and for flexibility, a large number of rigid conduction structures are installed inside the head cover, and even the body has similar metal. And as soon as I put it in, I was so heavy that I couldn't breathe. When the name of the doll was called on the spot, I was peeking through the hood at Yale Barrett, who was wearing a handsome professional attire today. It's a lot like the first day I saw him. He was standing in the hall speaking on behalf of the freshmen, and it was so beautiful that I was stunned. Call me again. I hurried forward, trembling and staggering. Who designed the ghost head covering? At the end of the show, I walked to the dressing room to change into the huge doll costume, and as soon as I took the hood off, a bear kid barged in and kicked me in the ass. I was about to curse, but my body collapsed uncontrollably. It hurts. Can't get up. Sarah Norris. I heard Yale Barrett's voice, and it was heartbreaking. I was taken to the hospital, where the doctor said that my waist was broken. I needed to recuperate, and I had to sleep on my stomach for a few days. Can I move? Then, can I take a bath? I'm not stopping. It's better not. If you want to wipe your body, you can call a nurse or your husband to help you. I wanted to cry without tears. I don't care. I want to be discharged. Yale Barrett's eyes were dark, and the next moment was a reprimand. Sarah Norris, who made you wear a doll costume? Don't you know that it is controlled by professionals? If it's your head today, it's not just about bending your waist. I was scolded for being stupid, and the grievances in my heart exploded instantly, and tears dripped on the pillow in strings. I just want the press conference to end smoothly. I'm afraid that I won't do a good job. You are not happy. I promised you yesterday. He was breathless and didn't speak, and the next second, he slowly sat down in front of my hospital bed, and patted me on the back. The doctor said it will take about 3 to 4 weeks to get better, and you can rest well during this time. By night, Yale Barrett hadn't left. Aren't you leaving? I had slept and drunk the porridge he brought me. He glanced at me. I'm a caretaker. I was sweating and slimy. I want to take a shower. Can you help me call the nurse in? No. He vetoed me with a look on his face. Why? I'm so sticky. I want to take a shower. I started to lose my temper. Yale Barrett looked at me. Her thin lips purr slightly. My own daughter-in-law's body is shown to others, and I am not so generous. I gave him a blank look. Who is your daughter-in-law? And the nurse is a woman, he argued. There are also men, but not women, and women are not allowed to look. As he spoke, he came over and opened the hem of my clothes, and I hurriedly reached out to stop it, and scolded, "Beast, what are you doing?" He leaned down and put his lips to my ear. "Wipe your body for you." I turned my back to him, and began to struggle. "Yale Barrett, you dare, you're my wife. Why don't you dare?" He lowered his head and buried his head behind my neck, his warm lips pressed against my neck, his hot palms easily clinging to my shoulder blades. "I don't dare. I don't dare to be willful. You pull my clothes off." I began to beg for mercy. He finally stopped, his voice a little forbearing. I said, "Sarah Norris, don't mess with me, or I won't be able to do anything, and I'll have to taste the grass on the edge of this nest." Hearing this, my face instantly turned red. In the end, Yale Barrett couldn't resist me, so she asked her nurse sister to help me wipe my body. Yale Barrett followed the nurse and kept saying, "Please bring an eye patch if you can." The cold light behind the nurse's sister flashed, and she couldn't help but emphasize it again. There is no gender distinction in the eyes of the medical staff, and I have what she has. Under the threat of my eyes, Yale Barrett finally stopped talking and reluctantly left the room. In this way, I completely became a riceworm. Except for the toilet and the nurse helped me, the rest of the work is usually done by Yale Barrett, who is busy with work, but insists on rushing over at night to help me massage my waist. One press is an hour or two. I couldn't get by, so I asked him to help me find a nurse, but he insisted no. After a month of intimate care, no matter how cold the stone is to be hot, I often stare at the night and wait for the night to fall, expecting his slender fingers to gently touch my waist, which is really comfortable. I can't help but think back to the kiss he put on my neck that day. Could it be that the charming me really healed his emotional wounds? On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I was full of spring breeze, not at all suffering from illness, but a lot of plump, during which my colleagues from the company often came to see me, especially my best friend Ingrid Sandy, as if she was going to call this place home. "Ingrid Sandy, you've got a lot of experience to help me come up with ideas," I asked. My best friend was helping me pack my luggage, and when I heard this topic, I wondered, did you really fake a show with your husband? Slept. I held the glass of water, choked and coughed, and said angrily, "What are you thinking about all day?" When I think of the recent ambiguous atmosphere with Yale Barrett, I instantly feel that I am not very confident. When I told her about Yale Barrett's previous emotional injury, my girlfriend looked at me like an idiot. He was emotionally injured, and didn't get close to women. Then why didn't he go to the house? I retorted, but that's what he told him. He's been single all these years. And when he said so, did you believe it? You're too easy to deceive. She shook her head and expressed her helplessness at me. The imperfect development of the cerebellum. Let's talk about you. You are a famous college student. How come when it comes to emotional problems, you become a 250? You really can't see it or fake it. Yale Barrett likes you. He looks at you like you, as if he wants to eat you. Does Yale Barrett like me? But he clearly said that rabbits don't eat the grass next to the nest, and I am the person he least likes. What's more, he also has a first love that has influenced him to this day, the one who is engraved in his memories, and I will never be able to surpass. Seeing that I still didn't believe it, my best friend smiled evilly. Let me find a way to make him admit it himself. Let him show his feet, and Sundeer will have to use Sunder's method to cure him. I must have been crazy lately. That's why I think about him every day. I came back to the company in the next few days, and the work was on track, and Joe Truman quit and replaced me with a new intern. A boy in his 20th year old named Nat Kingsley was soft looking, but he was very serious about his work. Sister Sarah Norris, I think this plan can be revised. Sister Sarah Norris, let's take a break with a cup of milk tea. All in all, very attentive. The kind of hospitality that I can't stand anymore. Hey, I've heard that the company is going to go to team building in a few days. A colleague next to me is discussing. I was so bored in the hospital for a few weeks that I was in a panic, and when I heard that I could go out and play, I immediately refreshed. Where are you going? I heard that I went to the hot springs. The hot springs are good. Hasn't Sarah Norris just flashed her waist lately? The water is able to dilate blood vessels and improve blood circulation. Yale Barrett thought about it. No way. Can I be a little more affectionate when he's for me? Sarah Norris. Don't laugh like a dumbfounder. Get to work. Yale Barrett happened to pass by me and came lukewarmly. I used to hate his stinky and self-righteous attitude, but now I think it's quite handsome. I must have been stupid with a waist flash. Sophia next door leaned up to me. Sarah Norris, I think you've changed since you came back from the hospital. You weren't interested in team building at all, and you said you'd rather take a leave of absence and stay at home. Why are you so active this time? That's right. What about my cold personality? How do you fall in love? How stupid are you? And what does Yale Barrett think of me? I brushed the broken hair on both sides, and transformed into a professional strong woman. If you stay in the hospital for too long, you will be bored, and it is not bad to go out for a walk. That's Sarah Norris. When I got home in the evening, the courier rang the doorbell, and I happened to be taking a shower, so I asked Yale Barrett, who was near the entrance, to sign for the delivery for me, and as soon as I came out, the other party had a look on his face that I owed him 8 million. What? I don't know why. Out of the blue, he asked me some inconsistency questions. Sarah Norris, what's this dress like? I don't quite understand. There are sleeves. There are collars. He held up the courier he had just opened. Then you say, what is this thing? Is there a difference between wearing it and not wearing it? I couldn't help but be shocked when I saw the fabric in front of me, and even instantly understood its origin. It turned out that this was the secret weapon that Ingrid Sandy said, but I don't dare to use this weapon. I snatched it down. Why are you driving my courier without permission? I can't turn a blind eye to the big words written on the express box. He cocked Erlang's legs. Tell me, why did you buy it? Don't think so dirty. Dress freely. Girls dress not only to please you men, but also to please ourselves. I'm arguing with reason. He nodded in affirmation of my point. That's right. Do you want your husband to come and taste it for you? This. Yale Barrett paused and said with a smirk. Are you sure about this size? I looked at the size carefully, and I couldn't help but look dark. Ingrid Sandy, you think too high of me. I was instantly embarrassed, and I felt like I had to run back to my room. The battle failed, and I was not worthy. In a blink of an eye, on the day of the team building, because a few colleagues were afraid of heights, and everyone felt that taking the bus was more like an outing when they were young, so the bus became the means of transportation with the highest number of votes. And the most shocking thing for me was that Yale Barrett was actually the driver. Yes, Yale Barrett is really hands-on. Yale Barrett smiled. I used to have a small car accident when I was in a taxi and almost missed important people because of it, so I wanted to take my fate into my own hands. Small car accident. How did I not know? Our company has such good benefits that you can soak in the hot springs of Nankin Mountain residence. Yes, and such a handsome boss drives himself. Don't care about the old men in the company. It's too cool. Be careful. The chairman's car is right next to him. I'm going Tilda, it's scary. My colleagues were talking about it, but I couldn't listen to it. After about 2 hours of driving, as night fell and everyone was asleep, I glanced at Yale Barrett, who was sitting in the driver's seat, and sneaked into the co-pilot's seat. After sitting down, I complained a little. It's so tiring to drive. It takes 3 hours to get to Nankin Mountain residence. Why do you have to drive yourself? He was a little amused. Didn't you open it? How? Do you feel sorry for me? I didn't bother to pay attention to him. I feel sorry for you, fart. I'm afraid that your driving skills will not be good enough to drag me to death together, and the gains outweigh the losses. He didn't speak anymore. Ahead of a rest stop, Yale Barrett calmly stopped the car and shouted to the whole car. Those who want to go to the toilet go to the toilet, and those who want to eat go shopping. And going to the Grove, I was pulled by Yale Barrett into the Grove next to the rest stop, and as soon as I stepped out of the sight of others, he slammed me against the wall, and his voice was hoarse and full of charm. Don't you know if I'm good at driving? I slapped his groping hand away. I haven't felt it again. Little without a conscience. He pressed against me, and his lips went down, and I was completely dumbfounded. I was kissed, but only a little bit of water. After such a big battle, I thought Yale Barrett had the ability to put me to sleep, but he leaned his lips and kissed me, soft and sweet. My first kiss was like eating a marshmallow. All right, let's go back. They're coming back. He pressed the back of his hand to his mouth, and the corners of his eyes were unnaturally red. I was not happy that the question I wanted to ask was not answered, so I grabbed his sleeve and said, "Car accident. What's going on?" He couldn't stop laughing. "Sarah Norris, you really think you're my mother? You have to ask even what I say casually. Was it my birthday that summer? And we made an appointment to go to the amusement park." I asked him. He was silent, for fear that I would be right. A layer of fog was cast in my eyes. "You are like this every time. You don't say anything. I was in a cold war with you for a summer because of this." He saw that I was about to cry, and hurriedly got me a tissue. "Your kind of considerate personality. If you know it, you will think it's your fault. Of course I don't want you to know and worry. Yale Barrett." I stopped my tears and called his name. "Are you really not saying anything? Say you like me. Say you want to be with me. As long as you say it, I will say yes." "Say what?" I'm speechless. He's a fool. Yale Barrett is a super invincible big. Along the way, I didn't pay attention to him anymore. Such a wooden fish is really hopeless. When I arrived at Nankin Mountain residence, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening, just enough to go to the Boundless Cliff hot spring. Surrounded by forests, birds and insects play, beautiful as a dream. As soon as I got out of the car, I put my luggage with a few female colleagues in the company, and couldn't wait to go to the hot springs. There is no men's soup or women's soup here. They are soaked together in swimsuits, and I am wearing a lotus pink suspender swimsuit. As I was soaking in the water and admiring the flowing starlight, a man suddenly appeared beside me. I thought it was Yale Barrett, and turned to see Nat Kingsley looking at me, with a smile on his face. He accosted me first. "Sister Sarah Norris, I've been looking for you for a long time. You're here." I looked behind him and was a little disappointed. "Are you alone?" "Yale Barrett. And the directors, where have they gone?" "Director, I don't know, but Yale Barrett seems to have been pestered by a few beautiful sisters to ask for Weshet." He gestured not far away. "Ha, isn't that smiling spring flower? That is the married man of Yale Barrett? He seems to have seen me, too. It's annoying." He also said that he no longer believes in love, and he will not refuse to come to the beautiful young lady. "Yale Barrett, you're screwed." I turned to Nat Kingsley next to me and said, "Nat Kingsley, actually, I'm married." Nat Kingsley's mouth was so shocked that she could stuff an egg, and she was stunned for a long time before replying, "That's it Tilda, I originally thought that Sister Sarah Norris was single, so I wanted to chase you." "Don't worry, I won't chase after a married man." Seeing that he was retreating, I said, "Actually, what about my husband? You know that, too." I gave Yale Barrett a look. Nat Kingsley's expression of stealing company secrets made a 180-degree turn, and he took several steps back, his eyes sweeping back and forth between me and Yale Barrett. I had tears in my eyes. Look at Yale Barrett. He's so happy, so I want to get revenge on him. "Can you do me a favor?" I whispered my plan, and Nat Kingsley waved his hand repeatedly. "No, Sarah Norris, so Yale Barrett will kill me." I packed the ticket with a face. "He dares. He is still reasonable, when Hongxing is out of the wall. You just do it, and my sister will call the shots." Under my coercion, Nat Kingsley finally stood up tremblingly, and walked over to Yale Barrett, and in front of the young ladies, who asked for Yale Barrett's Weshet, he put his arm around Yale Barrett and called out a sweet, "My dear." I didn't care about watching the show, so I slipped away. As he ran, he heard Yale Barrett shouting from behind, "Sarah Norris, I'm so happy." I wrapped myself in a yukata and trotted, all the way to my hotel room. Just as I was about to close the door, when a familiar breath came from behind me, making me get up and get up chestnuts. How can you be faster than me?" I stared at Yale Barrett in front of me and felt incredulous for a moment. Yale Barrett had a terrible look on his face at this time. "Sarah Norris, it's not my first time here. Have you ever heard of a shortcut?" I turned to run, and he took 3 or 2 steps in front of me, looking at me like he was looking at a chick about to be caught by an eagle. "Sarah Norris, my peach blossom luck was lost by your intern. You said you weren't close to women. I'm saving you." "Yale Barrett." He suddenly approached me. "I don't know if I'm close to a woman. I'm going to rest. I quickly pushed him away. The distance is too close, and it is easy to wipe the gun. Go sleep with me. Yale Barrett grabbed me and walked to his room. Atilda, I only have my pink bandeau swimsuit in my yukata, and nothing else. As soon as I entered, he picked me up and put me on the bed. Sarah Norris, tell me the truth. Are you jealous? I turned my head and said, it's just a fake marriage. What kind of vinegar do I eat? Besides, aren't your thoughts all on the first love that hurts your heart? I've remembered my first love for so long, and I don't believe in love anymore, and I'm not closed to women anymore. I'm afraid it's not an unforgettable old love. Right, if you can't forget it, why didn't you chase her back? I said a lot in one go, and the more I talked, the more I felt wronged. I was playing with him at the beginning, but in the end, I really got angry. Yale Barrett's mouth lifted and his eyes flashed with a strange light, and he reached out to pinch my face and smiled. The vinegar smells so big. I dodged his hand, and he reached over and pinched it again. His voice slightly hoarse, Sarah Norris, the only person who can hurt my feelings is you. You are the legendary first love of mine. There is no one else. Only you are the person I like. My eyes widened as I watched what I would only dream happen before my eyes. I closed my eyes to make sure that the scene in front of me would disappear again. And when I opened my eyes again, he was still in front of me. In the blink of an eye, large tears rolled down his face. Yale Barrett reached out to wipe my tears carefully, and her movements were gentle and delicate. Don't cry, okay? Blame me for not speaking sooner. For 7 years, from the beginning of my freshman year to now, I knew that I needed money, so I used the most despicable means, and I was afraid that you would not agree, so I made up an illusory past. Yale Barrett looked dark, pulled me into his arms, and said, it's not all made up. You don't like me. I'm really hurt. When you were in college, your father's business failed and his personality changed drastically, and then your parents divorced, and you had a lot of mood swings at that time, and you didn't come to class for several days, and skipped school to go to an internet cafe. At that time, my family conditions were not good, and I could not help you with anything, so I could only go to you, again and again to cheer you up. But I was jealous of him because I didn't have the money from Dylan Doris to solve your urgent needs. At that time, I was thinking, I must be the first person who can help you in the future, and become the person you can rely on. Listening to his words, I bit my lip and said nothing. He looked at me. I still didn't say a word. He pinched my face again. Anyway, I'm here to confess affectionately. Can I give a response? The boss lady will take the trouble to approve my application for regularization. Okay. I shook off his hand, and my eyes hurt terribly. Why don't you say it after so many years of playing affectionately here? What? Now that's it. Don't you want to be a saint and ask for nothing? Are you holding back? How dare you lie to me? Finally, I couldn't help it. I started crying and beat him hard. Who told you that I received money from Dylan Doris? And at that time I asked my relatives to borrow the money, and Dylan Doris and I are not related to each other, so how can I ask for the money? And do you always think I've been with Dylan Doris? I wanted to ask you that day, who told you to be with that kid all the time? He is like an aggrieved little daughter-in-law. Dylan Doris' dad happened to be my dad's lawyer. The company went bankrupt, and we needed to take out a loan from a commercial bank, because I didn't understand a lot of things, and we needed to seek professional help. So during that time, I had a lot of contact with him. Yale Barrett frustrated his hair. I've been jealous for so many years just because of this. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes, and continued, in the past few years, I have paid back a lot of money. Recently my second aunt's son is getting married, and it takes a lot of money to buy a wedding house, and it is always bad to owe people money. And you said that you want to lend it to me, so I want to pay him back all at once, and I always think that it is better to owe money to others than to owe you money. Hearing this, Yale Barrett's face instantly turned red. I hurriedly explained, I think you're not short of money anyway. That day at the class reunion, I was very afraid that you would be the same as others, thinking that I was marrying you completely for money. But in fact, no, I have been deceiving myself all along. I feel that I am not worthy of you so well now. I am afraid that what you like is only the proud and excellent me before. Sarah Norris, If you like someone, do you care what she looks like? Even if you really use me, I'll admit it. His eyes were dark and shining. Sarah Norris, can I kiss you? I want to kiss you right now. I looked down and was ashamed. You seem to want to kiss me more than just me. The next second, his slender hand clasped the back of my head, and he couldn't help kissing it. He didn't seem to kiss, because the movements seemed so clumsy and jerky, and it seemed to be very good, and the kiss made my whole body hot. It's a Yale Barrett I've never seen before, with a broken beauty in her complexion, that makes you want to be pity. Suddenly I wanted to tease him. I let go of my courage. My eyes were full of amorousness, and his eyes were deep, like a spring of water. I leaned down to kiss him on the lips. His eyebrows. How could he withstand such a teasing? He straightened up. His eyes were level with mine, and suddenly, he lowered his head, and the sheets immediately blurred with a bright red. What's going on? Isn't that not yet the point? I didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore, and looked at him with a stunned expression. Yale Barrett, you can't. Right, I've only used 9 successes. Yale Barrett was so cowardly, and he was not embarrassed to think about it, and while wiping the nosebleed with a tissue next to him, he explained, I don't believe that there are men in the world who can be sensible when touched by a woman they like. Pounding, my heartbeat, which had been quelled by the accident, was beating violently again. I also don't believe that there are women in the world who can be rational after being confessed by a man she likes. I kissed him again, leaned into his arms and finally opened up to him, saying, Yale Barrett, you said you liked me for 7 years. Why don't I? He grabbed my shoulders and stared at me incredulously. Impossible. How could it be? No one wants to make a cursed doll pink. No one wants to go to the playground with the person they hate the most. No one wants to marry someone they don't like. It's because that person is you, and it's just you. He was stunned when he heard it. Actually, Tilda, I leaned into his ear. Back then, from the first time I saw you on the podium, I fell in love with you, at first sight. End of full text.